Welcome to BIM for Interiors, making Autodesk Revit work for you. This class will cover several pain points that are encountered while incorporating interiors into the BIM process. You will learn what to do as well as what not to do when using Revit Architecture for modeling, detailing, and scheduling interior components. If you are feeling as though you are not taking full advantage of its coordinated, intelligent environment, this class will get you going in the right direction. Discover what you can do to make Revit work for you, whether you are using an integrated architecture and interiors model or a completely separate interiors model. These workarounds will help save time and prevent lots of headaches. At the end of this class, you will be able to discover workarounds for common pain points, evaluate when to use 3D and 2D elements, use coordinated schedules, and create custom hatches. Let's get started with discovering workarounds. For the interior designer, placeholder families can be problematic. Swapping out families throughout the design process runs the risk of losing data, such as manufacturer, style, materials, etc. In this session, we will discuss how to use placeholder families effectively and efficiently without losing valuable data or time. In the early design phase of a project, start with a furniture template and create a simple box. This will represent a placeholder chair family for us. We will go to the application menu, go to New, Family, and choose the furniture template. In the floor plan view, we will create additional reference planes. These reference planes will represent the left and the right sides of the chair. Once we have our reference planes created, we can then create dimensions from the left, center, and right to create a string dimension that we can then equalize, and then one all the way from the left to the right. Once we've done this, we need to repeat the process for the depth of the chair. Going back to our Home tab, we can choose Reference Plane, and again drawing our two reference planes to represent the depth of the chair. We will create our dimensions, equalizing it about the center, and then creating another one to represent the depth. Once we have our dimensions created, we can then select them and choose to label them with the proper names: width, and depth. Once we have our reference planes and parameters created in the floor plan, we can switch to the front elevation. So again, we go back to the Home tab, choose Reference Plane, create it, and then create a dimension which we will label as height. Once we have this parameter created, we can go ahead and close out of the front elevation. Now that we have all reference planes and dimensions, we want to go to our types, and here we want to change these to more appropriate numbers. I'm going to put in 2 foot and 2 foot for the width and height. For the width and depth. For the height, we're going to place in 34 inches, just as something to get us started with. From here, we can also create a new family type. I'm going to call this one Sample, since this is just a sample project. Once I have that named, I can choose OK, and you can see that the family updates. Now that we have everything working properly, the reference planes and the parameters, we want to add the actual extrusion to represent the chair geometry. Again, we're doing something very generic here. We're just creating a placeholder, so we will create a simple rectangle for this extrusion. Be sure to lock each one of these sketch lines to the reference planes. And also remember to go back to your front elevation, selecting your extrusion and locking it to that reference plane that represents the height. Now that we have our chair created, we want to do a save as. Again, this is a placeholder. We know that it doesn't look like a chair, but this is just so that we can start laying out the furniture with the proper sizes. So I'm going to do a save as and save this family in my documents as something generic, such as chair 001. It is specific enough so that I can identify this separately from other chairs that I will create. It also is generic enough that it lets me know that this is a placeholder family and obviously not a specific manufacturer style. Once your family is saved, you can go ahead and load it into the project. Now let's swap out the placeholder family. Once you have the layout of your chairs set and you are ready to specify the style of the chair, you can start the process of swapping out the families. First, check the type properties to see if any data has been entered. From here, you can see that we have not entered any identity data. So the manufacturer, the model, none of that has been specified yet. And when none of this has been specified, it makes it quite easy to come back out and right-click, choose to select all instances of the chair in the entire project, and then you can easily swap them out for a specific manufacturer. You will again want to select one of the chairs and look at the type properties and just ensure that your identity data information has been set here. Another option is editing the placeholder family. Let's take a look at that now. Look at your type properties of your sample chair, and you see that there has been manufacturer information inputted in here. Let's say that there was. We don't want to lose out on that, so what we would want to do is actually edit this family. So as you have it selected and you look up at your ribbon, you will notice the button Edit Family. When we click on this, it will open up the family for us, and we could come in here and we could delete the placeholder box extrusion that we had in there. We can start to go through the process of modeling a chair from scratch ourselves. Now, if we have a manufacturer created family that we want to use in the chair family, we could go ahead and do that. What you want to do is you want to have that manufacturer created family open, and we want to nest this into the placeholder family. This is not necessarily ideal for every situation. I would suggest that it's better to use directly the manufacturer created family and not nest it into a placeholder, or I would suggest creating your own custom chair and modeling it from scratch. If time is of the essence and you really feel like that you have a lot of that identity data, manufacturer data already listed in your placeholder family, then this could be a quick solution. Definitely not ideal, but basically you can open your manufacturer style chair. You can choose to load it into your project, choosing your placeholder family, making sure that box is checked. So we can place it in there. We can delete the placeholder box, and we can use our Align tool to lock it into place. Select your nested in chair, click on Edit Type, and make sure that you map all of these materials and also the identity data to the parameters listed in this project or listed in this family. So for example, I would click on this seat material and click on this box over here to the right hand side. This would allow me to map it to a family parameter. I'm going to choose to add a family parameter and call this seat material. Choose OK and OK, and you'll know that you've done it right when this word grays out and there is an equal sign here. So we're going to go ahead and hit OK once you get everything mapped. Once we've got our chair set, we can load it into the project. Our bistro, we're now in design development. You want to make sure that you override the existing version and its parameter values. So you can easily go to shaded with edges and you can see all of your chairs laid out here with the color and the style of that manufacturer. You can select one of your chairs, choose Edit Type, and again, any parameters that you mapped over, you will now see them showing up in the type descriptions. In this portion, you learned how to discover workarounds using placeholder families. Let's evaluate when to use 2D versus 3D elements in your interior elevations. When working in a space that will have a simple design, such as our office here in our bistro, 2D drafting can be a good choice. To represent the plain vinyl base, a drafting line can be drawn. We would simply go to our Annotate tab on the ribbon, choose Detail Line, make sure that we are using the correct line style, and then simply draw the line to represent the base. The 2D elements give us a very simple way to represent the base, which is helpful when it's plain like this, particularly on anything that is an 1/8 inch or less in thickness, like our plain vinyl base here. It's unlikely to go through multiple design variations, so there's no need to have it modeled in detail. Also, when you go to other elevations or side views, you don't want to see the thickness of those elements either. So those again are reasons that you may want to choose 2D elements to represent some of your items in your interior elevations. When working in a space that will have a more complex design with multiple finishes, like our women's restroom here, 3D modeling will almost always be your best bet. For this bathroom, you can see that the crown molding is already part of the wall. Let's go ahead and add a basic base molding in here using one of the profiles that is already loaded in our project. I'm going to go over here to Properties and hit Edit Type. Next, I will come to the Structure area and choose Edit. Here you can see the basic structure of the wall. In order to edit the sweeps or reveals or any of these buttons down here that you currently see are grayed out, we will actually have to hit the Preview button. Once the Preview button comes up, you want to make sure that you have the section chosen, not the floor plan, but the section option. And now you can see that our Sweeps button is available to us. After clicking on the Sweeps button, the dialog box comes up. You can see where our crown molding is already defined here. We're going to add in another row and define our base molding. So just using the standard base that's already loaded in our projects, we will go through and we will choose the material, And over here in our materials, I'm going to look for the bathroom trim material. And choose OK. Our distance is going to be kept at 0 from the base. So it's going to be right at the base of the wall. And we have a preference here where we can choose if we want it to be on the interior or exterior side of the wall. We want this one to be on the interior side. And over here we want to make sure that we check both of these boxes for cuts wall and is cuttable. We're going to choose OK. You can see in our preview area over here, if we zoom in, you can see that base that's now defined there. Once we're happy with this appearance, we can choose OK. OK. And now you can see that our base is showing up at the bottom of the wall. So that's how you can add these 3D elements defined according to the type of wall. You also may want to create some wall sweeps that you can place individually. So it doesn't matter what type of wall it is, you can place it on the face. So let's talk about how to create an actual material that would go up here in the top of the wall area. To create this one, the first thing that I'm going to need to do is create a custom profile. To create a custom profile, I will go to my application menu, choose New, Family, and then browse till I find the profile hosted template. Once I find the profile hosted template, I will open it and I will start to draw my profile here. This is going to be a very simple rectangle, so I'll choose my line tool. Start here at the intersection. I already know the distance between my crown molding and the top of my backsplash, so I'm going to go ahead and type that in. I know that the distance for this particular element, I want it to be 3/4 of an inch thick, and then I would draw straight down and zoom in to finish this off. Once I have my profile created, I would then go to the application menu again, do a save as, and save this family. Once I have my profile saved, I'm going to load it into my project, making sure that I'm choosing the bistro. And from there, I need to create a wall sweep. The first step is going to the Home tab and choosing Wall, scrolling down to Sweep Area. Now I need to create a new type of wall sweep, so I'm going to hit Edit Type, choose Duplicate, and now rename this wall sweep. Okay, once I have my wall sweep renamed, then I need to come down and define the profile. And here I'm going to scroll down until I see my bathroom upper family, and I'm going to change the material going to my materials, scrolling up and looking at the bathroom upper material. You can see that it has a nice tile finish on there, and I'm going to hit OK. Okay, one other thing that we need to do is we need to check this box up here called Cut by Inserts. I'm going to leave it unchecked right now because I want you to see the difference that it makes. So I will come down here and hit OK. And now I am ready to place my wall sweep. So I'm going to go ahead and place it in my project, and then press Escape twice. Now you can notice that there's kind of a cutout up here. I have some vertical lines. It's as if my sweep is missing above the door. And the reason that that is because we didn't check that box. So I'm going to select this wall sweep after the fact, come over here to my properties, choose Edit Type, and check the box Cuts by Inserts. Once I hit OK, you will notice that it then fills in over top of that door, and I now have a solid wall sweep going across there. Notice that our interior elevations now has a tile backsplash, the upper backsplash that has a different material, along with a crown molding and a base molding built in to this wall. We're showing a lot of materials here, which is very helpful. It's very helpful to also model these elements in 3D because we do have these multiple materials, and they are also thicker than 1/8 of an inch. So any sort of wainscoting, chair railing, decorative crown molding, decorative base molding, you always want to make sure that you're actually modeling those objects in the view. It will become helpful, especially as you start to call out these materials in these rooms. Let's discuss using filled regions and material tags in interior elevations. Here in our bathroom interior elevation, we can see that we have a filled region in the upper right-hand corner to represent a pattern on this wall. Material tags are typically used to call out the materials on walls, especially when there are multiple materials being used. We can find material tags on the Annotate tab of our ribbon. Over to the right, you will see the tool called Material Tag. And as we hover over a material, you can see that it highlights and it has information waiting to be inputted. So we could simply call this out as a tile pattern, something very generic. Move it over. Now, if we wanted to create a material tag to tag this filled region, it won't work because this is actually a detail component. We can edit the material tag. So going over here and looking at the annotation symbols in your families here in the project browser, you want to scroll down, find the material tag family, and right click and choose Edit. Once you have the material tag family open, the first thing that you want to go to is Visibility Graphics, to the Annotation tab, and check the box to show annotation categories in this view. That lets you know where the center point or the insertion point of this tag is. We can also see that all that we have in here is a label, and we have reference planes. Go over here to our family category and parameters. We can see that it's listed here as a material tag. We have two choices at this point. Let's start by discussing the pros and cons of each type of tag. Generic annotations. Again, this would be a symbol in what we typically call a dumb tag. This would allow you to basically place this symbol anywhere in your project, and you would be able to input anything that you wanted into the description field. So it's not actually reading the information out of the objects. It's just simply a symbol. It's almost like a text, a piece of text annotation. So detail item tags are the other option that we have. These are intelligent items, and when we hover over a detail item, such as a detail component or a filled region, then it would read the information about that object. The downside to that is that you would need to create unique detail components or unique filled regions for every different type of material. We'll start with creating a detail item tag. So we will select this here in our window and choose OK. Once we do that, you notice that the label material description completely disappeared. That's because it no longer applies to this type of family. So we have to create a new label for our detail item tag. We're going to go to the Home tab, and over to the right, we're going to choose Label and click at this intersection point of the two reference planes for our start point. You can certainly create your own new parameter, and you can create that as a shared parameter within your Office shared parameter file, or you can also simply just choose the comments area. I'm going to choose type comments so that this will be specific to each type of detail component that has been created. I will hit the arrow to add it to our list. Over here in the sample value, I can type in material description. and hit OK. Now you can see that my label is showing up again. We can do a file save as, and we would need to save this as a new type of family called a detail item tag. Once our family has been saved, we can load it into the project. Making sure that we're choosing our bistro. In the women's elevation, we will now choose tag by category. And then we will come down to our elevation and hover over our filled region, and you will notice that the leader line starts to appear. From here, we can modify it. We can bring it down so that it's on level. We can also change our preferences up here on the options bar to free end, and then we can control where the end of that object is placed so that it lines up with our tile pattern. From here, we would be able to also type in a description. So let's make this slightly different. Bathroom upper pattern. It says that you are changing a type parameter. This could affect many elements, and we're going to say yes to continue. And let's slide this over. And now if I was to create this type of a filled region anywhere else in my project, it would also be tagged as bathroom upper. In this session, you learned how to evaluate when to use 2D versus 3D by learning how to use the wall sweep tool and also when to use filled regions and detail lines appropriately. Let's talk about using coordinated schedules in your interior design project. Here you can see that we have a few schedules in our project already, the furniture schedule and the room schedule. First, let's take a look at the furniture schedule. To look at how the schedule is set up, you want to go to your properties box, and over there you can see the fields. And this one is a very basic one. It has the type mark in here, the model, the family, the description. You can select any of these and move them up or down. You can also remove any of these and add in any additional ones when you're setting up your schedule. The sorting and grouping, I have it just set by type mark, one of the standard settings that you would see on most schedules. You can also come over here to formatting, and you can change any of these headers to be in all caps or to have a different type of heading than what's listed over here in the field names. You can also come down to count and make sure that you have calculate totals checked. That's going to be important. So schedules, they work well for letting you know how many individual objects you have in a project. For room finish schedules, they are okay. It can be helpful if you have basic rooms. So let's open up our room schedule. It's very easy to come over here and to start typing in information into these rows to describe the floor finish, the base finish, wall finish, all of that. You can either type out words completely or you can use abbreviations. Now, once we've got a few in here, we can go back to our sheet and look how it's laying out on the sheet. And you'll notice that it is automatically filling in for us here. Go directly to your floor plan view and right-click to activate the view here. And you can select any of your rooms and also start to edit the information in them. So if I select the room, you will see the parameters base finish, ceiling finish, wall finish, and floor finish listed over here. And again, it's straightforward just to type in some of the basic paints, abbreviations that you may have for the type of ceilings that you're going to put in or the colors associated with them. And you'll notice that it immediately updates over here in our schedule. The schedule is slightly grayed out right now because we're active in this view. Another way that people like to communicate the finishes in a given room is to actually use a room tag. So if I select on this basic room tag, I can swap it out for a custom one that we created in here called room tag with finish. Once I place it in here, you can see that it is quite big, so there is a downside to using these room tags with finish, but they can be helpful on certain projects, especially when you need to clarify exactly what room it is you're talking about and make sure that there is no confusion as to which finishes go in which rooms. I'm going to come up here to the options bar and click on leader, and then use the little move symbol down here to drag this outside of my room so that I can easily input the information. Again, you can see that I haven't filled out the base information, but all I have to do is just type here and I can easily fill in exactly what I want and it will update. Not only does it update here, it updates in the properties of the room, and it also updates on the schedule to the side. So depending on the complexity of your design, you may be able to go with these simple schedules or simple room finish tags on your floor plan, but many people have a much more complicated design, at least in some of the rooms. So let's go back and look at our women's interior elevation. Given that many designs are complex in nature and that they do have a variety of patterns on them, I would recommend seriously looking at your interior elevations, modeling these elements in 3D when they matter to the design, and using these intelligent tags like material tags and detail component tags. Here in our women's restroom, we can now see that we have all of the materials tagged on this wall, everything from the crown molding to all of the wall finishes down to the base molding. What's nice is that since we used real materials on these walls and we really modeled these tile elements, and we're also using smart tags with them, anywhere else that we go in the project where we see these materials, we will be able to tag them quickly. Let's go ahead over to our men's restroom and look at tagging those materials. You can see that we haven't done a lot of work in the men's restroom yet, but we do want to go ahead and start applying the material tags. So we're going to come up here to the ribbon on the Annotate tab and choose Material Tag. And now as we come across here, as we hover over the individual elements, you can see that that base is automatically reading that material abbreviation that we've already set in this project. This really helps to make quick work of tagging all the other interior elevations, as every one of our materials are now set. And as we work in the project and work in other areas, every time that we set the abbreviation for a material, we can count on that showing up anywhere else that we tag that material in the project. Another advantage that we have with these real materials and these real modeled wall sweeps and wall materials is that we can easily create 3D views that look nice. Let's look at our women's bathroom camera view. Here you can see that it's a fairly nice looking view. Doesn't look that impressive yet, but it's quite quick to come down here, especially in 2012 Revit, and we can now turn on the realistic option. So once we click realistic, now you are able to see that nice mosaic pattern that we have on the walls, and you can get a real feel for what this space is going to look like and feel like once the finished product is built. In this section, you learned how to use coordinated schedules to acquire furniture quantities, and how to use room finish schedules along with room finish tags and material tags. Let's create some custom hatch patterns in Revit. In our Revit project, you will find that fill patterns are actually the name for hatch patterns. So on your Manage tab, Additional Settings, choose Fill Patterns. Here you will see the dialog box that comes up The first area you will see is drafting patterns. These scale just like annotation according to the view scale. The other type of pattern is model patterns. These have specific sizes. If we were to place this 12-inch tile pattern in our project, we could actually dimension each of these squares and we would see that they are exactly 12 inches by 12 inches. When we want to create a new model pattern, we can click on the New button and let's create a 6-inch tile pattern. We can set the line angle to 0, choose the crosshatch option, and then set both of these spacings to be 6 inches. Once we say OK, you will see it show up here in our list. If we want something a bit more custom, we can go to the New button, choose Custom, and from here we could import in the default acad.pat file, the default AutoCAD pattern file. What I prefer to do is to actually open the AutoCAD pattern file and come in here and actually define some of these as model patterns, because that is more helpful in general to what I'm trying to do in Revit. So let's say that we want to bring in this English bond brick pattern. I'm going to enter in a new line and simply paste in a semicolon % type equals model, and that will tell this file, it will tell Revit that this is going to be a model pattern. Rather than save over my acad.pat file, what I will do is go to File, Save As. Here in the data files for Revit Architecture 2012, I can save my file and I will change the name and add for Revit. Once I have that file saved, I can come back to Revit, click on the Import option, browse to my data files again, and I will see the ACAD for Revit PAT file. Once I hit Open, the only model pattern that it will recognize is the one that we edited, because everything else is considered a drafting pattern. So I'm going to change this name to AR English Bond, because that makes more sense to me. I'm going to leave the import scale at 1 and say OK, and you can see this pattern now showing here in my list. I'm going to choose OK, and I'm going to go ahead and create a filled region so that we can see what this pattern looks like. The first thing I'm going to do is change my scale, because I want this pattern to be able to show up well for you guys watching this online. So now I will go to my Annotate tab, choose Region, Filled Region, come over to my Properties area and create a new type called Brick English Bond. I will then set my pattern to be the model pattern that we brought in, AR English Bond, choose OK, and then I can sketch out my border. Once I've got my filled region created, I can zoom in on it, and we can dimension this. You can see that the length of this brick pattern is exactly 7 5/8 inch. So leaving it at that 1 inch import scale created bricks that are exactly the size that we need. There are also other third-party options that you can use to create custom patterns. One of the companies is called HatchKit. You can easily Google online and look for other third-party hatch pattern creation tools. In this section, you learned how to create custom hatch patterns, otherwise known as filled regions and fill patterns, in Revit Architecture. In this class, you learned how to discover workarounds for common pain points by creating placeholder families and also how to swap out those placeholder families. You learned how to evaluate when to use 3D versus 2D elements. We practiced with wall sweeps and also learned how to use detail lines and filled regions appropriately. You learned how to use coordinated schedules by creating furniture schedules in which you could get counts and totals, and also room finish schedules. Finally, you learned how to create custom hatches using Revit Architecture. Thanks for watching BIM for Interiors, making Autodesk Revit work for you. I hope that you found this class will make you more productive and more efficient in the future. Don't forget to fill out your class survey today. Come back to AU Virtual to download the handout and PowerPoint slides. My name is Veronica Lamb and I am a technical specialist with USCAD Hawaii. I can be reached at veronica.lamb@uscad.com. Thanks again.